Have you ever noticed some people almost never post their photos online? No selfies, no vacation pictures, no profile updates. Are they shy, secretive, insecure, or mentally stronger than most? In a world dominated by Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat, posting photos feels normal, even expected. Scrolling through feeds, it's easy to assume everyone is constantly documenting their lives, framing every moment for an audience. Yet tucked beneath that stream of filtered smiles and staged sunsets are people who quietly opt out. They don't broadcast, they don't curate. They simply live off camera and often off the grid of other people's attention. Today, we'll explore the psychology behind people who don't post their photos on social media. This isn't about judging them or turning their choices into a diagnosis. It's about understanding the thoughtful, practical, and sometimes surprisingly powerful reasons behind that silence. First, some of these people aren't craving likes because they don't need them. For many, self-worth is internal. Their day-to-day sense of value isn't tethered to notifications or public approval. When they travel for the experience, not for the photo that proves they were there. When they accomplish something, they celebrate privately because the validation that matters is theirs, not an external tally. Privacy plays a huge role too. For some, a face in a public feed is an unnecessary exposure. They've seen the downsides. Misused images, oversharing that leads to awkward questions, or a creeping loss of control over how their life is perceived. Keeping photos off social platforms is a boundary, a quiet rule that protects personal space in a world that constantly asks for access. Then there are those who prioritize presence. When you're busy framing a shot, you're sometimes missing the moment. People who avoid posting often report feeling more present and more connected in real life. They remember conversations and textures and smells, not timestamps and hashtags. For them, memory is private and rich. It doesn't need an audience to legitimize it. Avoiding the comparison trap is another powerful motive. Social media can be a relentless highlight reel, and posting opens the door to judgment and comparison. Some people know that better than anyone, so they step back to preserve their mental energy. Less scrolling, less measuring, less second-guessing, more peace. Finally, sometimes the reason is simple. They don't enjoy taking photos, they're not active online, or they just don't care. Not every choice has a dramatic backstory. That ordinariness is important to respect. So next time you notice someone doesn't post their photos, don't assume absence equals secrecy or sadness. It may be a deliberate stance, a preference for privacy, a commitment to the present, or a form of emotional self-reliance. In a culture that applauds visibility, choosing invisibility can be quietly radical, and, for many, deeply liberating. Many people post photos for likes, comments, and the short-lived approval that flashes across the screen. Social media is designed to trigger those reward circuits. Each notification can light up the same dopamine pathways that make us reach for more. For folks who stay off the photo-sharing treadmill, that pull is weaker or simply unwanted. They don't build their sense of worth around public reactions. Their self-esteem comes from inner standards and private measures of meaning. When they achieve something, they celebrate it internally or with close friends, not on a feed. They feel no compulsion to prove that their life is interesting, because the proof that matters to them is lived, not posted. In choosing quiet over applause, they show that confidence doesn't always need an audience. Some people are deeply protective of their personal boundaries, treating what they share like a carefully guarded room in their life. The thought of exposing their face, their location, or the rhythms of their everyday makes them uneasy. Vulnerabilities don't feel like content to be broadcast. For them, privacy isn't just a preference. It's a form of psychological safety that reduces worry, scrutiny, and the small but constant drain of living for an audience. By choosing who sees what, they keep control over their story and avoid the slow creep of public ownership over private moments. In a world that pressures us to overshare, that control feels like a refuge. Key point, for them, privacy equals peace. Instead of framing and documenting every experience, they make a choice to experience it fully. For them, stopping to set up the perfect shot or compose a caption can interrupt the flow of a moment and pull them out of what's actually happening. They prioritize presence over presentation. savoring conversations, sights, and sounds without translating them into content for someone else's feed. Their memories are private, stored as feelings and details they revisit internally, not as pixels optimized for engagement. Key point: not every moment needs to be broadcast to be meaningful. Social media is a powerful engine for comparison, turning private achievements into public benchmarks and everyday moments into contests. Posting opens the door to judgment. Likes and comments become a yardstick people unconsciously measure themselves against. Many who choose not to share photos do so deliberately to avoid that mental trap. They see how constant comparison quietly eats at self-esteem and amplifies anxiety. By stepping back from the performance, they protect their inner equilibrium and preserve joy that isn't validated by strangers. Key point: less comparison, less stress. Some people deliberately reject the curated personas social platforms encourage, refusing to become a highlight reel of carefully chosen moments.